We unite from the mountains to the sea, warriors of love, you and me. We are the new tribe of the earth.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Rainbow Warriors 101. We're together hand in hand. We are humbly stepping in to the new earth, forging the way for all generations to come. Tonight, we continue with our guest speaker, Mr. Lance Beem. And Lance, I would just like to say on behalf of all the Rainbow Warriors here at 101, we are so grateful for everything that you have shared with us. We are honored to be here. And by the way, my name is Michelle, and I am honored to be here and be your moderator for the evening. And it is an exciting time right now. I've got to say, I love the equinoxes. I'm honored and celebrate the ceremonies of the solstices. However, I must say the summer solstice is one, it is one of radiance. It is a sacred time. It is illuminating. It is of deep gratitude and prayer. So on behalf of all of us here at Rainbow Warriors 101, we wish you a beautiful solstice. And there is a sacred ceremony that I have heard about many, many times, actually. And I am so happy and grateful that I get to learn firsthand from Chief Mel Standing Eagle, who is, I'm going to pass the feather over to him to share with us what is happening this weekend. Chief Mel.
Thank you, Michelle. Blessings, everyone. Creator indeed does have a sense of humor. Last week, Michelle took care of everything. I was in North Georgia speaking at a energy summit conference and 2 nights there, and it was very powerful, and the response was magnificent. One of the elder economic development people for the Cherokee Nation was in attendance, and we've had conversations since, and several humanitarians was there, and they want to get involved with projects, and there's a lot of things going on. Miss Valerie and Brother Jim and a few others in the gathering of Eagles have been talking with the young crowd out at the Lakota Res, the youth council, and then there's a grandmother's council that's involved. And tidbit share, you never know what little piece of knowledge between any one person can make that difference in somebody else's life, like the story I wrote about in the book. This weekend, let's see, I have a wedding in South Carolina Saturday. I'll get about 4 hours sleep, and then I'm off to Tennessee. That was where we had the emergence last year, the 8th fire ceremony at Tennessee of the Rainbow Warriors. And I was honored to be the closing speaker for that event and to do the altar at the 8th fire with the Hopi Mayan bundle that I carry. And Crazy Horses bundle was flown in, and the World Hereditary Peace Pipe was there. This year, the solstice, they've asked me back. I will be speaking Sunday afternoon, as I did last year, solstice. And from there, we will go down to the land and meet the scientist. There's some awesome research scientists like Brother Lance here that's working to create energy off of the land. And there's some really great technologies that they're working on that has not been made public yet, and we're going to be there with that. And I was asked to be the ceremonial host of the fire ceremony for the equinox. So we will have a drum circle there. There will be a storyteller there that will do a guided meditation. And then they asked me to do the fire ceremony, and I have asked Chief Sabrina Whitehorse to join me in doing that ceremony Sunday evening. So the energy that resonated last year was life-changing. I never expected. When I walked in the door, I had no idea what I was doing. And when they told me that They saw me as a bridge of races and a bridge of nations because I'm so mixed blood. But I honor and respect. And because of all that mixed blood, it allows me to look at various Native nations, look at other First Nations around the world, and to look at the things that we need to work on together. It's how we come together and how we heal. And real men are aware. Real men are aware of where we're at in this time. And in my writings and in my talk, it will focus on energy because we're all energy. Everything, four-legged, two-legged, the plant kingdom, those that swim, they all have an electrical current within them. All trees, everything on Mother Earth. And when we start understanding that, it allows us to attune, to align, to become a better us, so that men are more aware, they step up to the plate and they do their job. So with that being said, I want to light some sage, sweetgrass with a little cedar. And I have here some Cherokee tobacco for Creator, giving thanks for this day. Another beautiful day of life, another beautiful day of growing, another beautiful day of a chance to be that difference. So with that said, as we listen to Brother Lance tonight, I call on Brother Eagle to come, to open our eyes that we can see and take that knowledge and be able to take it beyond the bounds that we're held to by earth. And that as the wolf, that we take that and we're able to use it and walk the grounds and do no harm. And that we together as the bear hold one another together, hold one another up, support all races, all nations, all children, the rainbow children, the crystal children, known by many names. It is us. We have a starseed awakening within us, and it is our duty to hold that line, because if we don't, who will? And with that, thoughts of the buffalo and Creator and those things spiritual, give us strength and understanding that we walk our path and we walk it with integrity, that we walk it humbly and be appreciated and always be amazed and thankful for these things that are put before us this day. With that being said, Brother Lance, I appreciate you, my friend, being here. We're going to be making some more changes in the future. Brother Lance is bringing in some more friends. We're going to get into plant medicine. We're going to get into how to become independent and be supportive and not dependent on the big corps that control us, got that thumb down on us, that we ourselves, we are the change, we are the difference, we are the men and the women and the grandmothers. Together, we make this earth a stronger place. I love and thank each one of you being here. Brother Lance, I turn it over to you, sir.
Sounds good. Can you hear me? Good. I had to switch over. All of a sudden, the air conditioner, I'm in a hotel room and the air conditioner next to me turned on. So I hope you can't. Can somebody help me share the screen? Can somebody
Yeah, you should be able to.
share right now? Okay, let's see.
Your screen is up.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's see. Then I need to go down to my PowerPoint. Okay. Everybody see that? Okay, good. All right. So let me back this up just a hair. Okay, so this talk is going to be brief. I'm going to cover about 8 products that are organic, that are biopesticide. They would be a bioinsecticide, a bio fungicide. There's a number of things that we could cover, but I just want to get to the core of some of these things because they're ones that you all can use. And I have some brand names that you can look at. I've done work for some of these companies and some not, but there's a lot of generic stuff out there now for neem and for pyrethrums and for some of the what we call Bacillus thuringiensis, which is the BTs or the soft products for insect control, but they all have different modes of action. And as you could see, even in our talks that we've talked about before, when we talked about the Kilaya or about the Yucca or about the Waiuli, those desert plant extracts, they all have different similarities, but they're also different modes of action. And that's where I think you'll find it's good to rotate your chemistry as you're working with insect pests. And they each have different modes of action. So sometimes you can put something on that's really brief and short and will just knock down the worms and get rid of them without disrupting all the beneficial ladybugs and all the other predator insects and stuff. So these are some of the most attractive parts about some of these natural plant extracts and natural microbes and such that have a selective nature to control what's a pest for you and I. Say it's a caterpillar, it's some kind of insect that's chewing your leaves, and then this product would work on that, but it wouldn't attack the beneficial parasite or some other insect or a lizard or something like that. So anyways, all right, the talk is Old and New Biopesticides for Ag, Home and Garden, Part 1. I took some references from this Ag Daily, and I think this is a really good resource. Some of the things I got for my presentation came from them. There's a company in India that builds a lot of different greenhouses, and they had a lot of interesting information. So the Ag Daily is one, and the Info Enviro Agritech is another one that I got some of the information cited. The other one that I use a lot is having to be here in California is the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources, a statewide integrated pest management program. And this is for home and garden or home and landscape. And they put out a newsletter, not unlike North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, any of the southern states, or, all the ag states. Well, actually all states have some kind of an ag program. A lot of times it's incorporated into the county buildings or the county facilities are associated with the universities. So this is another one, and this is the web link at the bottom for this. It's very good, and I got some information for this. All right, this is just a snapshot of things I will talk about, but I'm primarily going to talk about the natural substances. But just to know that under the organic pesticides approved by the USDA, which then they would have to also be approved by the EPA, these are some of the most popular organic pesticides that are natural. And so some will call it organic pesticides. We tend to call it natural. Or, OMRI approved, which is for the Organic Materials Research Institute that certifies things far and above what USDA does. USDA pretty much signs off on everything as long as you can declare where its source is from, and as long as it's organic or natural. You can't add something to it that would be man-made. And so you can process it man-made, but you can't have any of the ingredients in that aren't natural. I'm just going to cover the mineral-based substances and synthetics right now. The primary ones are minerals. Copper is an example. You see sulfur up in the natural ones because that's not a mineral. But copper and zinc and manganese are oftentimes put together nowadays to be more effective than just the copper by itself, because we've used copper for a very long time on bacterial diseases. It bursts the cell very quickly, and it has a high attractiveness to the bacterium to go in and burst it like a bullet. But there's so much resistance out there now with bacteria diseases, and especially in wet areas, that they've repeatedly used copper types of products, hydroxide and oxide, oxychloride, to control these bacterial diseases in particular. They're not very good on anything else. But just so you know, we are adding different things to it, or we're adding synergists like surfactants and things to actually soup it up. Boric acid is another one. It's used actually in structural pest control. It's more or less a product that the insects get on their hands, get on their feet, get on their feet, I guess, and then get it into their body through the mandibles or on their body outside, and it kind of dissolves them. But for you and I, it's actually boron. It's just a acid form of boron salt. And diatomaceous earth is similar. Diatomaceous earth is natural. It's mined. And when insects go through it and they get it on their antenna or they get it on their feet, and they groom all the time, and in doing that, they have an effect of scratching themselves to death by opening up the cuticle, and it leaks out and they can't seal themselves. Basically, it'd be like having giant cuts across your body where you bleed out. Okay, then the last two are restricted, but they are allowed into the organic pesticide approved by the USDA. One is peracetic acid, which controls fire blight. It's allowed in with the hydrogen peroxide mix. And there are certain things about this that you don't want to get in your eyes or on your hands, but they use it to get rid of this terrible fire blight. If you are around apples or pears like we are out here, but apples maybe where a lot of you are, and you see that terrible burn, it looks like the branches have been set afire. That's actually a bacteria called fire blight. And once the rain hits it or starts running, it goes everywhere. It ruins things, whether the fruit's on there or not. And then the other one is a synthetic group of pheromones. So the pheromones are, you have insects, the moths, at night, they'll go out and they'll mate, and they'll go out and they'll feed, and the moths then lay their eggs, and then the worms get into the fruit or whatever it is. So we've come up with these little tubes that have this liquid in that have high concentration of synthetically made from the female attractant, a pheromone, for the male or vice versa. And when you spray these out across the area, the insects can't find each other to mate, basically. So this is a mating disruption, is what they call it. Okay. And also just the usage of the guidelines, organic farmers, as far as USDA approved organic pesticides, they have to kind of commit to prioritizing non-chemical methods such as cultural, mechanical, and biological controls before applying pesticides. And those pesticides have to be organic. Application rates and methods are strictly regulated to minimize environmental impact, prevent soil accumulation. So if you put copper on frequently on your trees and it rains down onto the soil and you have an accumulation of copper, that's toxicity. That's an example. So we got to minimize or runoff into the water, and affecting, soft-shelled insects and soft-shelled clams or things like that. Some natural toxins that are natural, but they're also had been in the past used as poisons to keep animals or pests away from the food, is arsenic and strychnine. Okay, and those have to be controlled. They have to be typically strychnine. I don't think it's used anymore, but any of the rodenticides and things like that. Some of those things are made from natural sources. So just FYI, you can't use those. They're prohibited. They're not part of the organic program. So if you got arsenic or strychnine, or you're using anything to bait, rodents or, squirrels, rats, mice, whatever it is, if you have an organic program under the USDA, that stuff has to be, so many feet, so many half a mile away from wherever you're growing your organic pears. Genetic engineering is not allowed in organic production, and all pesticide must comply with the USDA organic certification standards. So you go get certified once a year. Okay, so we're going to focus now just on the natural substances. There's probably another 10 or 15 of these, but these are kind of the basics that represent each group. So the first one is neem oil. It's a tree called azadirachtin, and it comes from India, and it's very common over there. And it produces a berry, and they'll squeeze the berry. They'll get the oil out of the seed. they can't really get it out of the wood like we get it out of the wood for like Kilaya, or we get it out of the tops or the bulk of the base of the tree of the yucca plant, and or like my roots, that we have on our Waiuli. This is just out of the berries, and they squish the seeds. They get the seeds out, and then they crush those, and they get real high concentrations in what's called azadirachtin. Pyrethrins are derived from chrysanthemum family. It's really pyrethrum, but they call it the chrysanthemum family, call it chrysanthemum flowers, basically. Effective against a variety of insects. Bacillus thuringiensis is a microbial insecticide targeting caterpillars and other larvae. They're specific to that, the ones that consume the BT. And then the trichoderma is a beneficial fungi that parasitizes pathogenic fungi. So fungus parasite on a parasitizes a fungal disease that we try to get rid of. And it does a number of other things. It actually promotes growth too. And it releases chitosan of all things, right? Horticulture oils would be what we call dormant oils. Typically, you would spray these on in the dormant season, when nothing's growing or is green or the buds aren't pushing yet. And what this does is it gets rid of all the eggs that were laid of like mites in the fall or in other insects. And so when you spray this premium oil, it doesn't have any, it has less than 2% sulfur in it. And if it had 10%, you would know it. And I'm going to tell you as we go forward, oils and sulfur don't mix on a tree at the same time. And there is a use for both of them. You just want to make sure that you don't overlap within a short space of time, or you can actually burn your tree and burn the tips of the twigs and the blossoms and such. So just FYI, but this oil is like a high paraffin oil, and it's premium, and it's sold in gallons and totes all over the place to keep the oil on long enough in the wintertime to soak in and get the eggs, so that those eggs don't hatch and have different kinds of insects and mites in particular. Sulfur is another one that we just finished talking about, and you want to be careful if you're using sulfur, because it burns more than just having some oil on top of it if you get it too high. It's a fungicide primarily for powdery mildew and some other certain fungal diseases. The other thing is kaolin clay, and that's something new, and I'll share that with you. We've been using it for about 20-25 years, but they coat the tree with a very thin layer, almost like latex, but it's clay, and it helps protect a barrier on plants to deter insects. It also keeps the leaves cool, and it still gets photosynthesis, oddly enough, but it keeps the leaves cool and helps protect from leaf drop. Okay, the first one I'm going to kind of go into detail on is neem oil. I'm not going to use a lot of the big words like azadirachtin, indica, because all that is the tree. We'll just call it the neem tree. But neem oil is derived from the seeds and from the fruit of the neem tree, as we talked about. I mentioned that earlier. The seeds contain the highest concentration of oil and active compounds. The production of neem oil begins with harvesting ripe fruit and seeds. I don't want to belabor this. The method ensures the oil retains its potency. So there's different processes for extraction. Typically, you don't want to use a hexane or any kind of an alcohol. It's pressed out in water. If they use any kind of compound, I think it's like we can with cannabis. There's one of the oh gosh, I can't remember which one it is, but it's part of an extraction that I think you're allowed to use, and they may use that. Neem oil is a complex mixture, and it has fatty acids, some pretty straightforward types of oleic, stearic, palmitic, and linoleic acids, and those actually have some medicinal qualities as well, but also have been able to penetrate into the egg or penetrate into the insect. Other bioactive compounds, this one I can't even pronounce. It's nimbendin, And that is really basically the first thing that is released out of this mixture that is quick to kill. And then the prolonged rest of the azadirachtin oil seeps out slowly. So you have kind of a quick hit, and then you have it, being a residual. So that's kind of a good product, especially being organic and safe. And you can see it's used in a lot of other businesses, like antibacterial and antiviral effects in particular. The oil has a yellow or brown color, bitter taste, distinct garlic sulfur smell. You sure know it when you're spraying it. Widely used as a natural pesticide repelling insects such as aphids, whiteflies, and caterpillars. And we can go on, but basically it's very bioactive. Okay, these are pyrethrins. Pyrethrin comes from the pyrethrin plant. It's grown in Africa mostly, but it's in the chrysanthemum family. Without the Latin, it's the chrysanthemum family. So these flowers are full of this reagent that is preventing insects from chewing on it and stuff. And so they take those flowers and they extract the chemicals out of it, which are called these pyrethrins, and they make them into either an oil base, like a concentrate, like this pyrethrin concentrate, or they make it into a dust. And the dust is really nice. If you've ever worked in things where you have wood and it gets borers in it, and you can blow a dust in there, and it'd be like boric acid or it would be something else. You can also do this. They've made it into a powder so that you can dust into, get rid of boring insects, whether they're colonies or individuals, and it works very effectively, particularly in the structural pest control industry. I'm not going to belabor all this, but this has over 2,000 registrations as a pesticide, including sprays, foggers, dust, pet shampoos, a whole bunch of stuff. It affects the nervous system of insects and causes paralysis and death. They often combine with a synergist, which keeps, so insects breathe through their spiracles. They don't have a nose to breathe. So they breathe from their sides, the openings in their sides, and they can kind of regulate those. But when you spray this stuff on, they open up and it takes it in. So that's the key mode of action, in particular the pyrethrins, is it gets into their breathing nostrils, which are on the sides of their body. And if you put this piperonyl butoxide in with it, which has an organic registration, which I don't know how, but they do, because it's so synergistic, it actually makes the pyrethrins work 10 times quicker. The nice thing about pyrethrins is they do their job and then they're done, and they don't cause a lot of disruption. They don't, unless you have a really high infestation, it's very dry and you have mites all over the place. Yeah, it'll cause the mites to kind of move around and start reproducing and spread out. That's true. But other than that, the best thing about this is environmentally, it's one of the few that you just don't pick it up once it's sprayed. It gets in the soil, it breaks down very quickly. The only thing it's toxic to is aquatic life, like shrimp, fish, oysters, and some aquatic insects. Honeybees, more or less, not birds really. But the environmental risk is mitigated by rapid degradation and low mobility in the soil. So once it hits the soil, it's pretty well locked up. Okay. Now, this is the Bacillus thuringiensis. The bacillus is for a bacteria. That's a group of bacteria. I don't know who thuringiensis was or what it means. That Latin has left me, but it's a naturally occurring soil bacterium, widely used as a biological pesticide due to its insecticidal properties against various insects. What it does is it produces a crystalline protein, and it's very interesting, but all bacteria have these proteins in them. And this one, when the insect, which has a high pH gut, so it's more like a salty gut. And so when it is consuming the food like a leaf and it has this bacterium on it and it ingests it, it goes in through its tract. And because that's a base, meaning it's salty, it breaks that body of the bacterium and releases this crystalline protein called an endotoxin. And that is what kills the insect. It stops feeding fairly quickly. It affects its mandibles, which is a jaws. So within 24 hours, they stop feeding, and within like 2 or 3 days, they just fall off. A lot of times they look black, and you can tell, but it works quickly. It doesn't work like a pyrethrum. A pyrethrum works 24 hours, it's gone. In this case, it's slower. And so, a lot of guys, they don't like using it because they got a whole bunch of insects out there. And if they put it on, they're going to have to chew more, and they're going to have to take more leaves, and they're going to have to do this and that. But the other thing about it is that the insects, once they start feeding, they're still on the leaf, but they stop feeding within 24 hours. And within about 2 to 3 days, they're dead. They die and they fall off. And you don't have disruption. You don't have mites because of a pesticide spray and all the other kind of stuff. So I used to work for the company Abbott. They became Valent. And, everybody laughed at us, because they go, hey, we got this thing that knocks the thing dead in 2 minutes, it knocks it in 2 hours. It's, and your stuff, it's still roaming around 3 days later. Well, that's not true. I mean, 24 hours later, it's stopped feeding altogether. But what we found was really important is all those other pesticides, you put them out, you got to spray again, because you knocked out all the beneficials, the ones that are the good guys, like the ladybugs, or some of the minute pirate bugs. Those guys are crazy. They eat up all the eggs of all these different insects. So you have to time this. If you start seeing chewing insects, get some of the stuff and spray it out as soon as you can. And all those that hatch out, the spores will be there on the leaves until they stick in there, and until the new insects that hatch out start feeding on it. So this stuff lasts probably, the BT probably lasts a good week to 10 days, something like that. But the nice thing is the generations of an insect tend to be, between 7 days and 21 days. So if you put this out maybe twice during that 21-day period of time, you can wipe out a whole population and not worry about it later, when the worms are out and the fruit is on instead of the leaves. Okay, it easy to measure, mixes well, sprays easily, controls the caterpillars. I don't like the word worms because it's not a worm, it's a larvae. But let's just say that the stages of growth as a caterpillar or a larvae are about every 2 to 3 days, they're molting into a new size and a new size and a new size. And then they become a butterfly or a moth or, whatever else it is as far as an insect that they're susceptible to, mostly the butterflies or the moths in particular. They're not so good on lygus bug, or they're not so good on, some other things. But this one is really effective and has been used for a long time. You use it on your trees, you use it on your ornamentals, on your vegetables. The next one is trichoderma. I'll wait till the end for questions if you don't mind. Trichoderma is really an interesting project I worked on when I was with Abbott. They brought it in. Trichoderma is a kind of very wide swath, a group of fungi, and they are micro parasites. Basically, they go in and they're a fungi that feeds on a fungi. And so if you have not on a bacteria, not on an insect, but on another fungi, so just like parasites, that are insects that parasitize, like wasps, micro wasps that parasitize an aphid. In the same sense, this trichoderma is a mycoparasite, myco being fungi. And it directly attacks and parasitizes soil-borne pathogens. Pythium, that's a big one, that's stamping off. Rhizoctonia, Fusarium, and Phytophthora. Phytophthora is horrible. And it does it by producing chitinase, like we talked about chitin last week, glucanase, which is forming the energy in some of the cell walls, and protease, which is forming, providing the nitrogen and providing or the protein in the body to build all the other things protein does, and other than bone. And in this case, for humans. So in this case, with the insects, they need that sugar, for their structure of their cell walls, and they need the protein as well. And the chitinase and the glucanase, gluco for sugar, and the protease, all three of them, these enzymes are degrading the cell walls, and it's marvelous. It's really a neat product. It's not slow either. It works very fast and effective. It's competitive with pathogens for nutrients and space in the rhizosphere. Antibiosis produces antimicrobial compounds that inhibit pathogen growth. It induces systemic acquired resistance. We talked about that with the chitosan last week, where if they get a low dose of the chitosan, or they get a dose of the chitosan, whether it's made from crab shell or from insect shells or whatever, when it gets it, it feels foreign, and then the plant starts reacting to that and starting to protect itself, so that when you put chitosan on it, it starts turning on things that will protect itself against pathogens and against insects. So the same thing with this. This induces that induced systemic resistance. And then there's nutrient enhancement by solubilizing some of the insoluble phosphates and other nutrients. This is a picture. I don't know what disease this was, a fungal disease on the right. On the left has been treated. These are the little cacti and those little cells. They're grown in a nursery, and you can see that the roots, I don't see any disease on top of the cacti, but it is definitely attacking the roots. So and there is a problem with some of the desert plants. They're real susceptible to watery type diseases that they normally don't get out in the sand, but when they get planted in a greenhouse and they're watered regularly, and they got a little bit of peat in them and stuff like that, there's always a chance that this fungus can really take off on them. So you can see how incredible that is. They're both the same age. They're just one side is treated. I think this photo is two different photos, but they put them next to each other. The cell size is the same, so they got that accurate. So that's very impressive. The benefits beyond disease control is root growth promotion, stress tolerance, biostimulant effects such as increasing chlorophyll synthesis and physiological transition in the plant. These are the two common strains, the Harzianum T22 and the Virens G41. And those numbers represent different strains. So this one has been real popular, the T22, for a long time. They call it planter box or something like that. And they'll put it out at time of planting. Bioworks is a company I've worked with. They're back east, and they kind of dominate this trichoderma stuff and some other bacterial-based pesticides, but they're real big on the trichoderma. And they call it Root Shield or Root Shield Plus. And I worked on one that is called, so the one thing about trichoderma you need to know is that it needs to be in the soil. It can't be sprayed on, right? And it's UV light sensitive. So if it comes up out of the soil, the UV light hits it and it dies. So it's definitely down in the roots. This is what's unique. Like the BT that we were talking about. You can spray that foliarly, or you can put it on in the soil. But the best way is to have the right strain. And in the strains of Bacillus, those ones that I showed you, those can be sprayed foliarly and not be affected by UV light. But there's a lot of bacteria, probably 99% of the bacteria in the soil that is UV light sensitive. In other words, they won't grow or reproduce in sunlight. So in the same nature of this, there are a lot of trichoderma in the soil that live in the soil, and they stay out of the UV light, and they do their job. A lot of them are beneficial. But there's a few of these that have recently, and I worked on this one called TH39, that they found growing in Israel on the bottom of a pepper plant. And they went out and plated it out, and they grew it, and they found that it can live outside of the soil on the plant and reproduce on the plant in sunlight. And that's huge. I mean, and so we worked on that for quite a while. And Abbott, they ferment a lot of their medicine and stuff, and they have BT. They're a big player in the BT business. You go back to their facility, and they got a 4-story high, fermenter making Bacillus thuringiensis. So this seemed like a really great idea, and we worked on it. The problem was The Clintons came in and shut down a lot of pharmaceutical companies for not keeping good books, and they kind of punished them. And so they were about to build these big fermenters, and then that kind of put the crimp on it. In fact, what finally happened was my division actually, after all this time of being in Abbott, because you know it's a 40-year company, they sold us off to the Japanese, and we took that molecule with us, and they didn't want it, so somebody else has it now. But it's really really interesting chemistry, really interesting actions that's released by these trichoderma. You can soil drench it in the root zone, colonize the rhizosphere, seed treatments, potting mix incorporation, hydroponic systems. Although you have to be careful that you know UV light breaks down in about 4 inches of water, so it's it's 80% less in 4 inches of water, but you have to have that water deep enough that some of these things, if you have them in water, they might break down if they're floating on top. Um, Avoid applying incompatible synthetic chemicals at the same time. Use buffer periods in between. That'll help its survivorship. The one on the left, well, let's see. Anyways, the one that says Root Shield Plus, that's the one I worked with quite a bit for the guys out of New York, and it's a premium product, and it's both of those strains that we talked, species that we talked about, the Hartzianum and the Virens. And this other one, I think, is just the Hartziana, and it's a diluted form. The one to my left, anyways, is about 150 bucks, and it's 16 ounces a pound. And the one to my right is 16 ounces, and that sells for about $35 or 40, something like that. They both go a long way. You don't use a lot of product, but the difference is the quality of this one has from grow out, they can show the difference. So if you're a home garden user, get the cheaper form, and make sure that it's the Hartzianum. And on this other one, commercially, if people are growing, big nurseries and things like that, they always rely on the Root Shield. One of the last ones we're going to talk about, I got one more after this, is dormant oils. We talked about that early, and they call them dormant oils. They call them horticultural oils, whatever. They're used to smother soft body insects like aphids and mites, and they put them on during the dormant period. You don't want to put, even though this oil is pure and the buds are going to start to turn green and push through it, you want to typically spray maybe 30 days before the green tips push out to a leaf. A lot of times it'll take 3 weeks for the green to just start to show, and then the bud finally comes out. But it's best if you see any green buds, get the spray or don't do it at all. So this is the recipes. So you'll be able to see this. In using these oils, you use 2.5 to 5 tablespoons. A tablespoon is a half an ounce, just so you know. So 2 tablespoons is an ounce, which is 30 mils. Okay. Let's see. Per gallon of water, spray thoroughly leaf stems, preferably early in the morning. Yes, which is very good, or do it at night, avoiding drought stress and hot conditions. Application overview. This Monterey's product, again, another one I worked with, is a mineral oil-based insecticide, miticide, and fungicide. I'd say for organic gardening, concentrate in 16 ounces, fill the sprayer halfway up with water, and add the 2.5 to 5 tablespoons of oil per gallon. Then finish filling and mix well. Ready to spray. They have ready to spray products that are already mixed in 32 ounces, attached to a hose directly, and ensure that the solution is well mixed and tested on plant area first to make sure it's not sensitive. If you got house plants, you don't want to be spraying these oils on those. It really is designed mostly. I mean, we do play a game on the leaves sometimes early where we'll put out a little bit of this oil, not the high rates, but a little bit of this oil to spread and kind of suffocate some of those eggs that are still there. But the idea with the dormant oils is to try and get all of the aphids and all of the cocoons that are on, some part of the tree up high or whatever, that have attached themselves. That if you can spray these oils, that will help penetrate into both of those, into the eggs and into some of the cocoons that are pupae, that are in the cracks and places. I think this is about it. Timing, dormant, growing season, safe use on ornamentals, roses, and a lot of them you have to be careful with the rate though, very, very low. And again, it's kind of almost like a wetting agent. Avoid spraying during drought, heat extreme, and when plants are moisture stressed. The oil works by suffocating the pest. It's not a poison. It's non-toxic to humans, pets, and beneficial insects. So it's a nice product to use. And believe me, I mean, there's lots of times where you just, if you have dogs, you have kids, and you've got a backyard garden, a little bit of oil sometimes. This is, again, it has to be this horticulture dormant oil, and they have it in this bottle right here. Mel, I don't know if I got you covered up or not, to everybody else, but it's horticulture oil. And that's that. And we're going to do sulfur, and then I'm going to talk, one more thing. Okay, so sulfur. There's two different things. You can use sulfur as a pesticide for insects and mites. You can also use it in particular as a fungicide, for example, on powdery mildew and other fungal diseases. And its lime sulfur is a mixture of calcium polysulfide formed by reacting calcium hydroxide with sulfur. It's a fungicide, insecticide, acaricide. Controls diseases such as plum pocket and black spot on roses. It has been utilized for over a century in horticulture. Lime sulfur is known for its effectiveness. Okay, it comes in liquid form or it comes in powder form that you can put it and dissolve into water and spray it. And let's see. This is just telling you how to mix it. Some of the things, repeating what I just said. Mix it according to the label, spray thoroughly on both sides, repeat as needed. Avoid ongoing control, reapply every 7 to 10 days until for ongoing control, because it doesn't last long. Reapply every 7 to 10 days until symptoms clear up. Make sure that the temperatures you're spraying at are below 75. They say 85 here. I don't believe it. 85 to 90, you can get burned. You can get caught. You can spray in the morning and it could get up there. But if it's like some of the days we have in California where the temperature is warm and it stays warm and it doesn't climb high, I'm saying I've done it. So you got to be very careful with sulfur, and definitely you need the calcium buffered sulfur, which is the type that you put on the plant, not a liquid in that sense. And it prevents this will prevent leaf burn. Okay. Methods of fungicide for powdery mildew, sulfur. These are again some of the things that we're talking about. Sulfur is generally considered safe for honeybees, but avoid direct spraying on flowering plants when bees are active. Tips: apply preventatively before disease onsets for best results. Rotate sulfur use with other organic controls to reduce resistance. Monitor. We use a lot of sulfur to reduce resistance to the other insecticides because they're so selective, that there's chances of resistance. So we add sulfur a lot of times to those. It's not the other way around. Monitor plants closely after application to detect any signs of stress. By following these steps and precautions, sulfur can be effective organic tool for both disease control and soil health improvement. And now you've seen this. I see this ad all the time. First Saturday lime. So first Saturday of the month, put out lime, but put it out dry. And the granule size on this thing is large, so that when it gets wet, it starts to release, and then it gets wet again and it starts to release. So it's the granule size is not something that you want to take and pour it into a sprayer and then spray it, or you'll clog the sprayer. It won't dissolve quick enough, and it's not the way to do it. So the way they got this is kid can take it, put it in his hand and throw it out, and they'll throw it around the border areas, where you'll have fleas or you'll have yeah, other insects, roaches, and things like that. You can take it and put it out. This is all outdoors, by the way. And you can take this and you can throw it in different areas. You can throw it down an ant hill. You can really piss them off, but you keep putting it out there, they're going to take the whole hive and colony and go someplace else. So the woman, I believe she's on tonight. If she isn't, this is the thing that Mel and I were kind of stumbling on, but this is out there now being advertised. You can buy it. I think you can buy it at Costco, or you can buy it definitely in Home Depot. And it repels mites, lice, fleas, flies, and more. Kills odor-causing bacteria, absorbs excessive moisture, keeps water fresh and clean. It's bee-friendly, organic, all natural, safe for pets, harmless, safe for people, and it's not safe for the insects. Okay, the very last one is this kaolin clay, and I watched this develop. Tree fruit, so for you guys, maybe it's peaches or it's cherries back east, or sour cherry up in the Midwest, or things like that. We have a lot of fruit in California, like they have citrus in Florida, a lot of different citrus. And in California, we got a lot of soft fruit, and it's cherries and it's peaches and it's plums and all this stuff. And it just doesn't take much of insect damage to scar the tissue of the fruit just as it's young coming out. The lygus bug goes in and punches a hole in because it wants to get something out of the seed. But in the meantime, it just destroys, the tissue, and it becomes an area for a fungus or bacteria to grow in. And so it's been a pain for years. Well, about 25 years ago, somebody came up with this kaolin clay, which I don't know what they or where they get the clay itself, but they make a thin film, just like we were talking about making a thin film of latex, that is the same thing. And they are able to put it in water, spray it on the tree. It sprays just like wherever the water goes. And if you have fine enough mist, which it'll go out, and then you can layer it so that it's on the top of the leaf, it's on the bottom of the leaf, and it cools the leaf from sunburn. It reduces the porosity. It holds the water in a little bit more without not having the gases exchange to get the carbon. And then it also coats the fruit. Okay, boy, that's, now you got clay surrounding the fruit. Well, the thing washes off. When we take the fruit and we wash it in the facilities, where they're washing the fruit, and it comes off. They have something in the water they have that takes it right off, so we're not eating it. But believe it or not, when they come in, those cherries have that coating on them. They put them through the wash, or the peaches, or whatever, or the plums, nectarines, whatever, and then that washes off, and it's beautiful. It's great. It's reduced the insect penetration from laying eggs, and it's a really great product. But the biggest saving grace is that it really helps reduce the water for the trees. Our water bills are high. We use 3.5 acre feet of water for trees and vines and things. It's not to say that you don't do the same thing with tomatoes and such, if not more, or melons. But where water is precious, and we have irrigation and drip and stuff, it really helps us manage the irrigation without having to over irrigate just to have water there for the plants, because they're not evaporating as quickly. Let's see. And these are just the things that I discussed, it improves soil structure, how to use it. It's a physical barrier. Disease prevention, yes, it does help us with disease. It doesn't completely, but it helps a lot with powdery mildew and some of the different blights. It moderates the soil temperature. In the summer, the kaolin clay reflects sunlight. It prevents soil overheating, while in the winter, it helps retain warmth, creating a stable environment for the plants. And as a seed coating, it enhances germination. Seed coating with kaolin clay before planting can protect them from pests and improve germination. And they tell you how to mix it, and it's non-toxic. Kaolin clay is safe for plants, pets, humans, making it an excellent choice for organic gardening. So now it's time for questions.
And kaolin's used in a lot of medicines too, brother.
Yeah, I noticed.
And
Yeah.
the whole time you was talking about, I was thinking, let's see, there's a plant less than a mile from me. All I need to go up there to their driveway when all them trucks are coming out and scoop up some along the side of the road.
Yeah.
Mine done went to town.
Well, I would grind it very finely because it's not going to come out of a sprayer with water if it isn't. But yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah,
run it through an old flour mixer.
yeah, you got it. I do start with a coffee grinder and then down to a flour mixer. Yeah,
There you
definitely.
go. That makes sense.
Yeah. So
Thank you so much, Lance. That was absolutely wonderful. I
thank
do
you.
have a couple of questions for you, but
Sure.
before I get to my questions, Miss Valerie, love you. You're up.
All right. Thank you, Lance.
Yes.
Fabulous, fabulous presentation as always.
Thank
I,
you.
I've narrowed down. I've got something eating my rhubarb leaves, and I think it's either slugs or earwigs. And I'm
Oh,
wondering what you would recommend
how far up are they? Are they up feeding on on the leaves themselves
on
or
the actual
yeah.
leaves. Little jagged, well, fairly good sized jagged holes. So I kind of lean toward earwigs, but
Uh,
because I didn't see slime, lines, but
yeah. That I mean, earwigs are, they live in the duff and then they come up and chew away. Their pain.
yeah.
The diatomaceous earth, that's a good one for earwigs because you can put it down and not worry about it with dogs or anything like that. So the diatomaceous earth is one that you can get. It's in a white bag. You can get it at like a Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever you have back there. And that's one. I'm trying to think. There are sprays. I mean, there are many pesticide sprays. Pyrethrins don't work very well. Um, they're just their lungs are such, and they're down in the ground in the daytime. So your product's really not getting to them. So any kind of a dust, any kind of a boric acid's another one. Boric acid is a good one. So you could use boric acid or diatomaceous earth.
And
Lance,
then
start dropping down your screen so we got full screen of you again.
Oh, okay.
and then
Drop,
do you
drop
recommend
down my screen. Okay.
do you recommend
There.
using a powder or does it matter?
Yeah, no, they're both powders.
Okay.
Yeah, diatomaceous earth and the boric acid are powders. Um, they call it boric acid, but it's a powder, and you can spray it with like the old dusting days, that kind of a thing. Um, so yes, I mean diatomaceous earth, put it down there. They have sticky traps and things like that, but you don't catch all of them when they have a nest. Um, but yeah, those two. Let's see what else do we have up there? The BT doesn't work on it. The neem doesn't really work on it. The pyrethrins won't get it. So yeah, it's that's one of the easier ones. We used to raise worms in boxes and then take the stuff out that they pooped and use that for some organic um, fertilizers. And I couldn't believe the amount of earwigs that get underneath those worm farms. That is the biggest headache because they'll go in and kill. I mean, that soft body, they can just chew those worms up like crazy. So if you're ever raising worms, make sure you put a fine screen down, not in a metal screen, a mesh, not a screen door screen, but a mesh, so it can keep those earwigs from getting up there because they'll come up from the soil.
hmm Yeah. All right. Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome. I hope that helped.
That helps.
Good.
Thank you, Valerie, for asking that question because that's a really good one because we got earwigs that are starting up and oh my gosh. So Lance, now that we were talking about the earwigs, I noticed one thing last year. Now, what I did is because we have snails and slugs.
Uh-huh.
So I took a thin copper wire and I put it all the way around my garden. and
Yep.
it worked like a charm. But even though it's thin, is that going to create any toxicity in my garden?
No, what
Okay.
what it does, it has an electrical charge as it goes over it. So we put copper bands around trees so that the snails and slugs don't come up into the trees at night and feed on the leaves. Well, the snails in particular, and on citrus in particular too. But you'll see in orchards they'll put it, well, in particular citrus, they'll put a copper band around it, and as the snail goes over it, it electrocutes it, even though it's not, because it just the reaction with its slime has some kind of
Oh,
a charge that activates it. So that's it's a lot of hand labor, but I mean it's really worth it because you get snails up in the tree and you're done, especially in a evergreen tree like citrus. So
okay. So that
that's
really wouldn't work for the earwigs then either, right?
no,
Because they don't have that mucusy,
no, yeah.
right?
So oddly enough, it just works on snails and slugs. If you had, there are these little radios and stuff, that they try to tune them, and everybody has some kind of magic rod and all this other kind of stuff. But earwigs, as best I've experienced or known, is that we used to use a bait, and they would come eat it, and it was a carbaryl, so it would poison them. But you don't want that bait out there for the little dogs and stuff like that. So they've gotten rid of that. I think they've gotten rid of most of the metaldehyde too for snails and slugs. So they didn't leave us with many tools. Um, but yeah, the only other thing I can tell you, I mean, this is just my trick, is that there's a there's an active ingredient in kids' Kool-Aid, and methylanthrilinate, and it's very volatile. And catawaba and Concord grape and stuff, it's astringent and it's got that odor in it. Well, in European wine, that's all been bred out centuries ago to make wine out of their grapes. But we make grape juice for kids and ourselves, out of the American grapes. And it turns out that the active ingredient in the American grapes, like Catawba and I forget the other ones, but the normal one is Concord. The birds will not go after those grapes unless there's nothing else to eat. And we found this out in Washington State, where the guy he was an expert on animal behavior. It happened to be voles, but he really noticed that the starlings would come in just as the wine grapes were getting soft and juicy, and they would just ravage all their plots. And right next to them were like the American grapes, like Concord grape and Catawba and some of those. There's another one, I can't remember what it is. And they wouldn't touch it. The birds would not touch those starlings. They would go off because they could fly to another place and ravage somebody else's peppers or fruit or whatever, because they just didn't like it. If they had to eat it, they would be force fed to eat it, basically, meaning there's nothing else around. Well, it turns out that what that active ingredient is, it releases and volatilizes and goes up its nose. So the bird basically gets this shot of like cayenne pepper to itself, even though it's sweet to us. It goes up, it's very volatile, it hits its nerve ending because it doesn't really have like form like we do. It's a nerve, and it just senses. That's why it can eat a dead rat and it can eat a grape. But they just hate it. So we made a spray, and you see it out there now. They'll spray it for goose be gone. They'll spray it, on the golf courses to get rid of the geese so they don't poop all over the place, or at the airports so they don't get in the wings, get sucked into the jet engines, and a lot of different things. And who wants pigeon poop all over the place? So I helped work with a guy that I didn't know anything about this, but then I did find out about it. We got registrations for it on rice and wild rice out here in California because the birds are horrible. When the rice starts to get to the milky stage, they'll just come through and wipe out 20 acres. So we found out that you can make it in China and synthetically, and in India for like $2, and put it in a gallon, and you could sell that gallon for $90 to anybody because it's going to get rid of their birds. It's going to get rid of all the birds on their crops, on the different things like that. There's a certain formulation that you use, but that product, if I put it in a hole, for a rodent, a vole or anything like that, man, they'd come flying out of there. And I'm telling you, when I sprayed it around, the plants that I had, all the insects, got away because they have those spiracles that are open and they can't regulate them. And this stuff goes right in and just irritates them. So, take some high concentrated Welch's grape juice, Concord grape juice, and put it in a little saucer and let it just melt, and then just mist it, or make it so it's a wide swath, like we were talking about, with the soap, with the ants, a wide swath, so it has to cross or go around it. They'll be gone. They hate it. The only problem is as it is, it can burn root tissue too. So you don't want to saturate it. You want to just put it out on top. And even the odor of that, I think, in flat little dishes, you might find that, they avoid it because they come out at night. So that would be another, a trick for you. That bird repellent thing, that lasts about 2 weeks. It's amazing. We would spray it on trees to get, like in parking lots, because the grocery store people were, going and getting their groceries, and they come out and poop all over their in the wintertime where they roost. And we would spray them, and the place would smell great. It smelled like grape factory, grape jelly. The interesting thing is, I went to Welch's and I said, hey, we're in the organic business and we're making this synthetically, but what do you do with the pressings once you're done with the grapes? And she goes, oh, well, the secret is we make that for our tartar sauce. I always thought those little bits were pickles. It's actually uh, American grape bit pieces that give the flavor. Yeah. And when I asked, well, could I have the pressings? They're not valuable to you. She goes, oh yeah, they are. Best Food buys all of it from us, up there in Massachusetts. And they said that they had put together, kids for the families of the workers at Welch's. They made a soccer field for the kids. And the problem was they always had these geese go out and they're pooping all over the place. And the kids are playing soccer out there and they get on their feet and splash around and stuff. And it was, they were trying to get any way they could get these geese off, just like in golf courses where you don't want poop all over the place when you're playing golf in a nice place, like up in Rochester, New York or something. Well, it turns out that they found out too, before I even said anything, that somebody said that the geese just hate the grape odor coming off of, well, it's not, it's the active ingredient in it. And so they took the lease, they call it the lease, the pressings, and did it all over the field, and it got rid of the geese for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then it wore out. And they say, well, that's too expensive. We can't give that up, every 2 to 3 weeks, but it did work, so I'm telling you, something that hopefully will help you. But the concentrate of the Welch's, my brother-in-law, they would have pigeons roost up in their brick, curved roof, the brick pieces that are half moons, and they would roost up in there, and all in Sun City, and all the people hated it and this and that. And I told them use this bird shield stuff, and they did. And they sprayed it. The problem was the whole neighborhood smelled like grape juice for a long time, and they didn't like that. So I said, well, then what you do is you just go to wherever they're nesting, and you take cotton swabs, and you just, take Welch's grape juice, Concord grape juice, and just dip it in there and put those cotton swabs up there. Well, yeah, that got rid of them. They moved on.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That is so interesting. Thank you so much. And I noticed on your screen here, because we still do have your slide up. Um, yeah, you're most welcome. But thank you for being here with us. And we sure do hope that you are back after the summer.
Sure.
We
I
very much
will.
enjoyed all of this, so,
Yeah. Is
but
Christopher has his hand up?
Christopher, brother, you are up.
Yeah. What about nematodes for the earwigs and things like that, Lance? Do you recommend the nematodes, beneficial nematodes?
If beneficial nematodes go after the eggs, I would say, yeah. I think they do. I mean, the predator nematodes aren't they're omnivorous, so they're going after everything that's small, and yeah, that's a real possibility. I should know, which beneficial nematodes. I spend 90% of my time on the bad parasitic ones, but
Right.
the beneficial nematodes primarily consume the bacterium and excrete it and release it into usable nitrogen. That's one big deal that it does. And the earwigs like soft bodies, and it's worms a lot. I mean, it's nice to have worms, but boy, I'm like my example, they love that fleshy tissue, or larvae of insects. But as far as the nematodes for the young, because they have that hard shell, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's probably as much a target as it is like the larvae of a fly or of a caterpillar.
Well, there's I have found some in this magazine. It's
Oh,
called
really?
Abercrombie Organics, something like that. I can
Uh-huh.
find it, but you get three of them, three different types. Two of them are hunter and seekers, and one is lay in wait. And apparently, they pierce the body of the insect when it goes by and lays
Uh-huh.
eggs in it, and then they take it back to the hot nest, and it kills them that way. They use the host as a food source for the nematode. And they come in these
Yeah.
little pellets now. They're really easy. You just throw the pellets out and water them in with the
Yeah.
hose.
Yeah.
I
There,
don't know.
that's interesting you say that, because there are certain eggs of the nematodes when they hatch, they filaria worms. I mean, that's hookworm. That's what you used to have in the South, right?
Yeah.
And so, we do have worms in our bodies. We have bacteria, we have fungi, we have all kinds of stuff, and we got other good stuff in our body too, fighting that off. But that is a real problem in moist, humid areas, is the parasitic nematodes to animals. So
Uh,
it has to be. I mean, everybody that's a parasite is living off of another organism, including ourselves, right?
right.
So you have to
Yeah.
have that food source, and you have to specialize, or you get, you lose the game, and you don't become part of the next generation. So yeah, that's, if you wouldn't mind sending me what that is, that's a great
Okay.
idea, because I
I'll send
think,
it to you in Messenger.
yeah, and it's so
Pretty quick.
simple. That is so simple, and actually, if it is, I'm unaware of it, but it makes sense.
They kill termites. It'll take a termite mound out in about 2 weeks.
Really,
Yeah. Yeah.
one of the worst problems we have is this Formosan termite, and if you ever go to Australia, you just see mounds of them all over the place. They're the big tubes, and
Yeah.
they're those Formosan termites, and I've worked on some of those things and trying to control it. And guess what? My product controls Formosan termite. That's
Yeah. I don't know if it does
the
it for Formosa because they're airborne, or they're not really they're not waters. They don't need water. So
the
they don't go in.
Formosan termite. Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think.
I they must get moisture out of what they feed on,
Yeah.
and if where it's the worst, right? Where's
Yeah.
Formosan termite? In tropical humid areas, so they're getting their moisture out of the wood. Yeah, for
Right out
sure.
of the air, just sucking it
Yeah,
up
yeah,
like a lily or something. All right,
yeah.
Lance, I appreciate it, man.
Hey,
Really
very good, man.
enjoy
Good
your
talking to you.
topics every week.
Thanks.
So
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much. Appreciate
You're welcome.
it.
Chief, you don't have your mute. There you go.
Gotcha. I posted a few photos in the chat. This is nothing but rice water and the onion tea, and my eggshells, and all goes into the other pot with my lettuce and my celery and the leftovers from that, and soaked down. I've given away at tribal a few bags. I don't have many plants. And Lance told me clip back some of the leaves, the foliage. And when I did, these suckers just started popping up everywhere. The
Yeah.
Hopi corn, some of my corn is between 8 and probably 10 foot tall. Same thing. I've got other Hopi corn that I did not give this, just got the regular water and stuff with the soil that's enriched. There's half the size of the stuff with the nutrients that come out of our kitchens that Lance has been teaching us about. And later on, the PowerPoint that he did tonight, that will be posted in Rainbow Warriors 1-on-1 under our files, where we have some others too. So this is powerful to learn this. And when you hit the kaolin, and I'm like, ding dong.
Yeah.
Now that makes sense.
Yeah.
So another
Yeah.
another little resource that makes a difference, and
Yeah.
and thinking about it and knowing that it's used in medicines, it's used in chalk, and yeah,
Yeah.
used in tires.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that little thin coating. It's
Yeah.
like a little thin what do you call the cellophane wrap,
Oh yeah.
but it's all natural. And
Yeah.
that's the coolest stuff in the world about it, and knowing that it just washes off.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's interesting. Guys will do too much of it on the trees,
Mhm.
and they don't need to, because really what that winds up doing is really preventing the photosynthesis. So, they always warn these guys, put this amount in and no more. Hey, I can't hardly see it. Well, it's there. And if you see it like a
It's too
dustbin,
much.
yeah, it's too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I see an old friend of mine that I have not seen in years in here from San Fran, Brother Kent. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing, Mel?
I am blessed beyond measure, brother. Just thankful to be here in this time and, knowing how far we traveled from the old whole life days. So, I mean, we've come so far. You got a
Well,
claim.
new the whole life days is now going to New Living, and New Living's been taken over by Neo Gower with Porto to Ascension. So they're leaning more toward UAPs, UFOs, and all the rest of that.
Oh, that's sad. I know Kenny did it for a lot of years out there. So,
Well, I was in there for volunteering for the transition, so I got in touch with the new powers that be. I think he's open. He didn't
cool.
ask Daniel to come out this year, but I think he'll come out the next year. So we'll see what's happening.
We'll look forward to it. So, I'm getting more on the circuit now my own self. So, beyond a
Lance,
lot of
where are you located? Are you in the Bay Area?
Yeah, not too far. I'm over in Folsom Lake, up out of
Oh, I know
Roseville.
where that is.
Yeah, yeah. You're
I
in the Bay
almost
Area?
drowned there going to Red Cross canoe training.
Oh yeah, up there in oh, that's
Lake Natomas.
yeah, Lake Natomas for sure. Yeah,
This was like 40 years ago when I did that canoe class. I
yeah.
have another thing. Have you heard of a woman named Madeline Postman?
I'm not sure. I mean, no.
She actually grew up here in the Bay Area, in the Oakland area. She is the granddaughter to Joe Shung, who ran the National Dollar stores here in the Bay Area way back when.
Wow.
He was one of the Asian millionaires, but she's half
Yeah.
Chinese and half Jewish to a certain extent. But
Huh.
she's in England now. She wrote a book called Staring into the Sun, which was part of her personal history, but she's also into sustainability in England.
Oh, yeah.
So what I need to do is I'll follow up on her because I'm wondering with what you have, whether how you fit into her program.
Yeah. Well, I'm taking a break, not from anything having to do with this, but I'm taking a break because we've reinvigorated my company and my own product, and so I'll do the speaking circuit for Mel and you guys, whenever. But I'm gonna have to take about a 3 month break. But I'm always available by phone. And the one thing I can tell you is I love doing this because there's a lot that I've been given, and I want to kind of share it as we all do. But I think there's room for a lot of other people to come in now that I know or and other ones like her possibly that can help contribute to the group.
Well,
And
I'm connected to Danny Sheehan, and we've got a what we call a platform in waiting with a cabinet in waiting type situation to where we've had 13 different areas in the platform to deal with different areas like agriculture and farming and all those other things.
yeah,
So I'll try and bring it up to them to see where you may fit in to
sure.
bring that forward on a national level organization and see you can check it out and see whether there's a way that you want to reach out to her with what she's doing in England. Because I was
Sure.
going to say, with what Mel is growing over there, I wonder how your products over here, the agriculture compares to the European food thing, since food tastes so much better in Europe than it does here.
Well, they really have moved green a lot. I mean, there's there's a lot of complaints, but the reality is, the food products that they use on their produce, on their animals and things like that is a lot more diverse. And the example is I went to the biostimulant conference, and it's either the Asians or the Europeans, and it was just full of product brand names I'd never heard of and different products that, of course, it makes sense. If creosote comes from a shrub, sage
Right.
comes from a shrub, the same thing for my desert plant, Waiuli. It happens to produce latex and some terpenes as well. And so this is what all the natives use. This is what this group is about. And that's kind of why I was really interested in helping Mel on it, is because this is coming from ancient tribes coming to us, us forgetting about it and now relearning it, just like making rubber out of a Waiuli instead of out of a rubber tree in Malaysia, So it's fascinating. Yeah. And, there's about 2,000 different plants that produce latex to protect themselves. If you cut a spurge, it leaks, a little white stuff, right? Well, that's latex. Now, some of those are really toxic. I wouldn't be putting it on my produce because they're full of toxins. But the ones that we're working with, and they're far and few between, but the ones that we're working with are safe, and they're used in all kinds of industries and also into different medicines and things. Dr. Dr. Bob Waters is a virologist, and he's a friend I'm going to go see tomorrow. I've seen him, and Mel has, and Mel's taken the stuff like I did. Daniel came in and he wanted me to help some people that he knew because Mel had the cure for cancer. And it's so crazy. But during during 9/11, and then, people were running around with little bags of anthrax or whatever it was. And so everybody's freaking out. Oh boy, if in the military, they're going, boy, we've got rid of smallpox now. If somebody decides they want to really have a epidemic, they can get a little powder of smallpox and spread it around. And boy, it's going to be hysteria. Well, so Mel had a level 3 lab over at his university at ASU in Mesa. And he was asked to, because he's a virologist, he was asked to come up with an antidote. So he looked through the literature, and he found back in the day, Indian tribe up in Nova Scotia had been exposed to the blankets and things that had the smallpox, and they started, the shaman woman saw they were starting to get ill. They didn't know what it was. And she did what she always does. She was taught by her father and the grandfather. You go out in the forest and you find these little plants that have these little cups they're called pitcher, Pitcher plants, and they're full of liquid. And the insects go in to them, and they are attracted in, and then they get dizzy and they fall in drunk, and then they get dissolved. And nice scenario, huh? And that the insect is delivering the nitrogen to the plant because it only has some roots anchored. It's not using its roots to pull up nitrogen. Isn't that crazy? So that liquid has a protease in it that dissolves protein, right? And guess what are the things that have protein on them to survive? Viruses and bacteria. And this works on viruses really well. And so he got this potion, put it together. They worked out all the nuts and bolts of it, and they made it as an antidote in case there was an outbreak of smallpox, whether it was intentional or not. Well, guess what? They told him, yeah, well, you got to keep this secret, Mel, because, we only want it in case there's an outbreak, and we definitely want it for our military. And so, we don't want to start selling this thing around. He says, but it cures all these cancers, cervical cancer, throat cancer, Pavlova or whatever, all these. And he goes, Mel, you're under contract. You signed an agreement, and you're not supposed to tell anybody any of this. If you do, it could be jail time. And he
Well,
goes,
not
but
only
it's
jail
like,
time, it may be your life.
yeah, well, Daniel Brinkley and some of the other ones. I don't know. I mean, not
No,
Daniel,
we've gotten rid
but
of.
Wasn't that what I was using?
yeah, it is. It is.
They
Mel.
was going, Ken. They was going to cut. I've already had them go into my leg and cut a wedge out, football shape, This ear,
Yeah.
they were going to cut a wedge out of this ear. It was cancerous and it was literally dripping. I mean, it was dripping. And Lance said, "Brother, let me see what we can do." He overnighted to me to ask to give me 2 weeks. Next thing I know, after a few days, that whole area up there with that, it looks like a black salve. After a
Wow.
few days, it started forming a skin, and started scabbing up. And the next thing I know, everything healed. The knot is gone, and it's all back to natural ear.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be something off of Star Trek with
Yeah.
that wedge.
Well, I didn't plan to be a testimony, but I had a carcinoma on the side of my head, the size of my thumb, the fingernail.
Right.
It was huge. And I was just going, what? And the doctor goes, carcinoma, you got to get it cut out. And I go, wait a minute. Let me talk to Dr. Waters, because I've been preaching to other people, been sharing it with other people. Now I got it. Well, it's gone. You can't see because I actually still have hair here, but it would have been right here. And I don't think you can even see the redness of it anymore. It's flat. It's just, I feel it every once in a while. I go, my God, and my mom died of cancer on her nose. And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And she finally died. And I was scared to death, but I trusted Dr. Waters, and I trust all these other guys. There's many of them out there that know the secrets to this stuff. So that's why I like what we're doing, because we're going back to the old stuff.
Oh, we rise, we unite, from the mountains to the sea. Warriors of love, you and me. We are the new tribe of the earth, connecting our spirits, remembering our worth.